writing team because building bridges is really hard in this time. And there were a lot of, some really good conversation there around how difficult it is and how challenging it is. And how in times like this it can get so sort of the heat can get turned up so great. It's like I don't want to build any bridges because what I see over there is just it's bad, and I don't want to be part of that. And that goes for both sides, by the way. So it's really important that we take a look at this idea of building bridges because it's what we're asked to do, but we're in a time where it's gonna be a little bit limited because it'd be great to say like build bridges everywhere, but that's really hard to do right now because there are certain things that are just like not okay, and we don't want to build bridges to the stuff that's not okay. We don't need to do that. We need to build the bridges to where we can, and it starts with this idea. The bridges. What are bridges to do? Well, bridges are to span gaps. There's gaps in understanding. There's gaps in this. I mean, just fill in the blank, right? Gaps in a million different things. And our job is to build these bridges. And the key part of the bridge, I think, is they're there to span gaps, and not all gaps can be bridged. I mean, that was clear coming out of sermon writing team. I think that's really true. That at least right now, there are some gaps that feel almost impossible to span. But it doesn't mean we can't find where there are places where there are gaps that are spannable. And then what we do from there is we build a bridge, but this is the real important part. The bridge does not just go one direction. The bridge consistently has to go both ways. That's really difficult because that means that we have to have bridges that are part of understanding and listening and hearing. And that's really, really difficult to do. Painfully difficult to do. And I do think times like this are just, it's hard to even put words to it. I was telling my wife this morning, like for me personally, this is not me speaking as pastor of New Church Live, it's me speaking as Chuck. For me, I keep on thinking, like, we can't get any worse than that, And then all of a sudden stuff happens where it does get worse. And I don't have easy answers for that, that's for sure. But I know what we can do is we can keep coming back to first things, keeping first things recognizably first. And that gets back to this bridge building. Now what could that look like? Well, I think about I think about like how churches function. Churches are one of the few institutions, remaining where people will come together, hopefully around a higher ideal and that will supersede their political differences. In other words, I know for my congregation, I hope for yours or your synagogue, I hope that it does have that. I hope that it has like this variety of different people seeing things in different ways. I hope it has right and left, because that's what the church is supposed to be. It embraces this both and then it supersedes it. It embraces and supersedes. And you look at Jesus's message. I mean, there is not a group out there that Jesus at some point in time didn't reach out to. Roman occupiers, check. Government officials, check. Regular peasants, check. Widows, check. Orphans, check. Disabled, check. Soldiers, check. You could the list goes on and on. He reached out to everybody. There was a bridge going back and forth between everybody. And so much of what Jesus did, it's like the vast majority of what he offered was questions, not answers. I mean, I read in one Bible study, it's like the ratio of like questions to answers that Jesus gives is huge, huge, incredibly much higher number of questions. Now, granted, some of those questions are leading questions like Good Samaritan. Yes, who's the one who's really serving God here? He's asking a question, but he's really telling the question. There's plenty of those too. But it's still this question, and it's still this deep reciprocity back and forth. And that's why we see him in conversations in the street. We see him in conversations in the temple. We see him in conversations in government buildings. We see him in conversations all over the place. That's what we're to mirror as best we can. And on the side of that came up yesterday in sermon writing team, I think it's really important is what does hell want? Well, hell wants that angry thought, that justified resentment to get in there and to fester. And that justified resentment, again, like it starts to spin around in our head and it makes us angrier. And it's considered the number one killer is justified resentment. because we can put a religious patina on it. We can say like, well, this is why I feel that way. And then we just spin out, like getting angrier and angrier and angrier and more judgmental. And that anger from a hellish standpoint, what it does is that starts to just grab everything it can that it sees in the world to just become more and more angry. And when it grabs more and more of that anger, we start to internalize it, and we then become part of the problem. I mean, we're in the midst of a systemic challenge here. You could argue there are personal elements to it, but it's systemic, folks. There's a lot of stuff we got to work on here, and we're not going to work on it if for all of us our primary commitment is to anger. That doesn't mean we won't feel anger. I mean, this came up yesterday, and I thought it was beautifully said by someone. It's at this point in time, it's really hard to build bridges everywhere. Some gaps are just too great. I would agree with that. And at the same time, we can build bridges where it's possible to build them. And that really matters. And it may be our first bridge is just about this long, and that's fine. We don't have to start with the Golden Gate Bridge. We can start with the small little bridges we can make to others in our life. And that makes a difference. And where it's not out of anger, it's not out of agenda. It's about these connections of inclusion, and then we start to transcend that. We start to find a way forward. I mean, that's where it all starts is with these small little things. Mother Teresa, we can do no great things. All we can do are small things with great love. And none of that makes it easy in these times. And none of that allays a lot of the fear, anger, which some of the time in the new church we call it zeal, which sometimes is very legitimate and very needed. Doesn't say that that's all evil at all. And it doesn't take away our need to speak with honesty and clarity around the things that really matter. Doesn't take that away. It just means that as we're doing that, we're not allowing anger to become the God we worship. We're not allowing anger to become the God we worship. We're allowing God to be God, which is to move things forward, to speak with clarity, speak truth, all those things, and move the world forward in good ways. So today, in our own little way, like you may be worried about politics or not, you may be worried about this or that, but in our own little way, regardless of where you are, just think of what are the little bridges you can build today. And if there's a gap that just feels too wide, let it go. Because some just are. We don't start with building the Golden Gate Bridge. We start with a little bridge over a stream. Just find those little pieces where you can build a bridge with someone. And remember as you build it, that all bridges are going both ways. You're not building a bridge so that you can download an agenda on them or create something where they now come over to your quote unquote side. That's not really the agenda. The agenda is always relationship and connection. As Martin Luther King famously said, and I love these words, I use them all the time, we must remember that our goal is reconciliation, not victory. And through reconciliation comes a better world over time, very slowly. So I hope that makes sense, dear friends. And what we're going to do now is we're going to shift gears. We're going to shift gears to a little prayer, a little blessing, a little meditation, a little prayer, a little blessing. And we'll say hi to our friends on Facebook. So with that, let's get a little breath. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. All right, dear friends, let's give a little cheery hello to folks who might have joined us. And again, I hope you're all having a wonderful, wonderful day. Just flip onto this real quick. Come on, Nelly. Sometimes these things just do not go as quickly as what we would like. All right, come on. One more chance and one more try, and then we'll abort here. Abort the mission. All right. Oh, wait, there we go. All right, friends. It finally clicked on there. Let us see here. Martha, yeah, the snowball effect. That's it, right? That's beautifully said. You know, that snowball effect. I saw some of Martha Guy talking about compounding interest, and like works the same with money as it does with values. You know, small little things, get a little snowball, start rolling it down the top of a mountain and see what happens. And I think there's a lot to that. So thank you for writing that. That's good. Now flipping over on to the other Facebook page. And let's see, Rita. Good morning to you, Rita. I hope you're doing well. Sorry for the little technical glitches there. So anyways, dear friends, God bless all of you. We will see you again actually on Tuesday for 10 minutes of Morning Calm. Again, please join us this Sunday. Right Reverend David Lindruth is preaching at New Church Live. He's a